Hi, I'm Ben,
And I'm Lucas.
and we are two aspiring filmmakers making unnecessary commentary on famous movies.
Each week, we will randomly select a film to analyze, discuss, and review.
We will select the film at the end of each podcast, so you will have ample time to watch the movie before the next episode.
We are slightly qualified film students.
Hello.
Welcome back to
Welcome
another
back.
episode of Slightly Qualified Film Students. This is our 24th movie. We've got Manchester by the Sea, 2016 film. 2016 was
Directed
a fantastic year.
Kenneth Lonergan.
Kenneth Lonergan.
Lonergan. I don't know how you say it.
Starring Casey Affleck, Lucas Hedges, and Michelle Williams. And it's a depressing movie. It is a very depressing movie.
It's just kind of like there are extremely sad moments, but I mean, compared to some other like depressing movies, like there's not one moment in this film that stands out as like
Well,
especially sad.
I mean,
like there are a few,
there's
but I
one.
mean throughout the whole thing.
yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, throughout the whole thing, it's just non-stop, just depressing business for this poor guy.
It's constant. It's very constant.
Lee.
Yeah.
Lee is just, he can't catch any breaks. Like, his brother dies and his kid is just arguing with him over anything.
Mm-hmm.
He killed his kids in a fire.
Spoiler alerts.
And then it almost happens again. Oh, yeah, well, I mean, if you're listening to the episode, you
should have watched
should have
the
seen
film.
it.
Yeah. I mean, I'd seen this film already, but it's been like 4 or 5 years since I watched it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's I mean, it's hard to watch. It's a difficult one to actually like sit through. First of all, it's a pretty long movie. It's 2 hours and 17 minutes. And it's constantly like emotionally draining. I mean, it's captivating, and it's like if you actually pay attention to it, you actually get really into the film and you get stuck with these characters, but it's honestly just like it's tiring once the film ends. You're just kind of like,
yeah.
damn.
You just breathe a sigh of relief.
Yeah.
And I mean, his story is almost so sad to the point where it doesn't even have like the relatable qualities. Like at the end, you're just kind of like, damn, that guy's life just sucks. Which this guy Kenneth Lonergan, this is the only film I've seen by him. He's more of a writer than a director.
Right.
He actually co-wrote Gangs of New York. And a few other feature films, but this is his first like notable one.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, his writing style is pretty cool. His dialogue is very rooted in reality. This film feels very like I don't know, realistic, I guess. The conversations are very they got a lot of nice pauses in the dialogue and just kind of almost ad-lib feeling to it. And it just makes everything very natural, which almost allows Casey Affleck to just truly kill his performance. Because, I mean...
Yes.
He gives an amazing
Casey
performance.
Affleck destroyed it. It's one of the best performances of the 21st century. He won the Oscar, which is well-deserving. And yeah, it's a fantastically acted film with a really gorgeous screenplay. And just like a subtle... overall, like every filmmaking technique, it just feels very subtle, which adds so much to the overall just like depressing tone of this film.
Yeah,
you got a plot summary?
It just makes you focus. It just makes you focus on the events. Yes, I do. After his brother's death, Lee Chandler is named guardian to his 16-year-old nephew, Patrick. This forces him to return to his hometown and confront his past.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's a pretty good plot summary.
It is. And, I mean, it almost tells a bit too much in a way because you only find out that he's the guardian about halfway through the film. But yeah, I mean, just the way that this whole film is laid out, it's almost like stages of sadness. At first, you just get to see his depressing, lonely life.
Yeah.
But then even once he reconnects with all these family members and past friends, it's in the worst circumstances. So you just get two different sad vibes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. I mean, it's a sad movie, and you have to be emotionally prepared to watch this film. I was prepping
Mhm.
for it. I was ready. I was ready to go. And I think this film, yeah, does a really good job just showing grief and realism when it comes to loss and
Yeah.
just overall going through these stages of grief. And I think it even though it's so sad and like Casey Affleck's story is so depressing, it feels still very real in the way it's approached, in the way that you find out about all his all the stuff that happened to him in the past. And I really like
Yeah.
how they kind of timed out all of the emotional breakdowns that kind of happened between him and Lucas Hedges throughout the film. I thought everything
Mhm.
felt very natural, and I think that's big
Yeah.
props to the screenplay. But let's hop into some standout scenes right off the top here.
Yeah. Okay. My standout scene is it's kind of two scenes, I guess, but it's the lawyer scene where he finds out that he's been named the guardian to his nephew, Patrick, which is also intercut with flashbacks of the police station scene or his house burning down.
Yeah.
I'm counting it as one scene because it all happens in like about 9 or 10 minutes,
Yeah.
and it intercuts the two. But I mean that scene's just phenomenally edited. First of all,
Phenomenally
uh,
edited.
the parallel editing is great there.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it's just like so sad. It's crazy. It's probably the most intense part of the movie, especially in the police station where Lee tries to commit suicide with one of the officer's guns. It's just a heartbreaking moment.
Yeah.
And it's really one of the most powerful moments in the film. I love the way it's edited. I love the way it plays out, especially on first viewing when you have no idea what's going on. And yeah, it's a standout scene.
Yeah. I mean, it's a very difficult scene to watch. I mean, yeah, I remember the first time I watched that scene, I was like, "Oh my God, this is awful. This is absolutely awful." It's like,
Yeah.
without a doubt, a person's worst nightmare. I mean, but yeah, just well, the fire scene obviously, but the police station scene where Casey Affleck is giving his statement. I mean, that performance right there. I mean, it's what won him the Oscar right there. It was.
Mm-hmm.
It's an immaculate
For sure.
performance. I mean, I think that is the biggest standout scene of this film. I'm going to go with just like a little sweet scene that I really like. And there's actually like a few of them interlaced throughout the film. And that's basically all of the flashback scenes with Casey Affleck and young Patrick on the boat. Like
Yeah.
I think there's like 3 of them throughout the entire film. And I just like them. They're shot on a very wide angle lens, like outside of the boat, so you're just kind of watching from a distance, which happens a lot in this film. And it's just like really sweet, heartwarming stuff with young Patrick, Lee, and his brother kind of on the boat fishing or doing whatever, fooling around. And like just intercutting these scenes throughout the film kind of brings this little lighthearted spirit that just reminds you about who these characters used to be before all of these awful things happened to them. And I just really like those scenes. They felt really heartwarming and sweet to me. But yeah, I think
It's a great contrast between their relationship now, between Patrick and Lee, and what they used to have. Like you said, before all the trauma.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
Yeah, but yeah, I think the fire scene is definitely the biggest standout scene of the film.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So We don't have any audience questions today. I mean, I think this is a film that
Makes sense.
doesn't really have a lot of questions to ask.
It's not a very deep plot, you know. You don't have to look much further than what's actually happening.
No, it's very
And
rooted
also-
in realism.
Yeah, and it's hard to watch, so I wouldn't be surprised if we were the only poor souls that had to suffer through this.
That's something to say. You watched Manchester by the Sea, but then you watched it again. You watched it twice.
Yeah, exactly.
We did that.
You got that rewatchable pleasure. Like to get it almost feels wrong to like get enjoyment out of this film
Yeah. Yeah.
because it's just this poor guy. Yeah.
Okay, well, then let's just take a quick break and then we'll just hop right into the review. Okay.
All right, hopping straight in to story and originality.
Story and originality.
Out of 10%.
Out of 10.
Yeah.
I really like this story. Like I really like this story. I think it's a really interesting story. Even though it's super sad and difficult to watch at times, I still think it's very interesting, and it's an approach to just a realistic showing of what happens to family when a loved one dies. I mean, and
Yeah.
especially when you have a very small family, like when there isn't as many people around you to support you through these times. It's a really interesting look at that. And I mean, also this film is pretty original. I mean, yes, there are films out
Yeah.
there about grief and death, but this film feels like a step above most of those other films.
Yeah.
And it breaks your heart. This story is just heartbreaking. But I think it is really intriguing also.
Yeah, I think this is kind of just a modern day tragic masterpiece in terms of story. I really can't think of any other films that are just solely focused on one like ultra depressed being
Yeah.
like this film is.
Yeah.
I mean, this film doesn't like try to make you feel good at any point. It understands that it is a tragedy.
Right.
And it just piles layer upon layer of horrible stuff
Yes.
that this guy is dealing
Yeah.
with. And I mean, I have to give it props. Like, that's such a ballsy thing to do. Because a lot of movies are made, you know, for entertainment. So people will want to watch them a few times, you know, get a kick out of it. But this film is just, it's a very touching film. It's a heartbreaking film, and it understands that, and it just goes all out.
Yeah.
And fully commits. So I have a lot of respect for that. And yeah, I mean, I think this is one of the saddest films of all time. And it'll go down as that. Like,
Yes.
it has its place in film history.
I think it is kind of
So-
famous now for being the really depressing film.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I know it's not like a crazy film or anything in originality standpoints, but I mean, I just really love the story, and I thought it was worthy of a 9 out of 10.
Same here. I gave it the 9. Lee Chandler's story is just, it's beautiful. It's very depressing.
Yeah.
But it's a great story. Yeah, let's move on to beginning out of 5%.
Beginning out of 5.
I think the beginning is okay in this film. I think that the film, it's a very slow paced 2.5 hours or 2 hours and 17 minutes. Because aside from the fire scene, there's not really that much action in the film.
Yeah.
It's just a very dialogue-based film. And especially in the first 5-10 minutes, it's just a montage of Lee doing his plumbing. It's just kind of setting up his lonely, I guess, aesthetic, his deadpanness. He doesn't really react to stuff in the beginning. And it's a great setup, but personally, I just find the first 5-10 minutes to be a bit boring. It's shot nice. it sets up his character really well, but there's nothing really about it that impresses me all that much.
Yeah, I actually kind of liked the beginning to this film. Especially, I like that it starts off with a flashback scene of them on the boat together. Like that,
Yeah,
it's like the first 3 minutes,
that
but
is a good one.
I really liked that opening, and I was like, yeah, this is a really smart way to open this film. I know that it's not, um, I know that it's not as the beginning progresses, like the first 10 minutes, it's not thrilling or anything, but I think that was a really smart way to open the film because it sets up these characters that you're going to eventually meet, and it's just a smart way to open the film. It's sweet, it gets the audience engaged, and then they're able to do a bit of the slower stuff and set up Lee's character. I get that upon second watch, going through the plumbing stuff might not be the funnest or most fun thing to watch, but I think it actually approached their beginning and their setup in a pretty smart way, and I'm giving it credit for that.
Yeah. I guess just looking on a pure setup basis, I think that you get way more character development. Even pretty much, to me, the film truly, like, really gets into Lee's character when he figures out his brother has died.
Mm-hmm.
Because he doesn't really talk that much as a plumber.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a bad beginning. I just think it's just not really comparable to the rest of the film in terms of like depth or anything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I gave the beginning a 3% out of 5, right in the middle. Pretty average.
Yeah, I boosted it a little bit. I gave it a 4 out of 5. I don't know. I really liked the opening 3 minutes, and it boosted it for me. Let's move on to ending out of 5.
I love this ending. It's like a tiny little speck of light at the end of the tunnel. You're not there yet, but it looks like things could possibly have a happy ending in the future. It's not like it's not that ambiguous, but at the same time it kind of is, because it's, they fix the boat. They're just kind of leaving these characters' lives for you to decide how they went on afterwards. And I think you can look as the final shot of them fishing to be somewhat hopeful.
Yeah.
They're not arguing like they were for the rest of the film. And obviously the boat works, so I think that it's a decently hopeful ending compared to the rest of the film. I really love the look of the final shot.
And
I think it's a nice way to end. It's nothing crazy, but it's a pretty nice ending.
Yeah, I mean, I like the lead up to the ending. I like that scene where they're just walking up the hill together, throwing the ball to each other and just kind of talking.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think this ending is that impressive. I mean, I think it wraps up the stories pretty nicely. I feel like they could have done a bit more. I feel like they could have, I don't know, I honestly don't know what they could have done. I just felt like this ending doesn't impress me all that much. It's just like, yeah, I mean, I guess that's where their stories end. Which isn't a bad thing.
Yeah.
I just don't think it's, that crazy of an ending, honestly.
Yeah, it also just kind of feels like a lot of setup, and then you don't necessarily get that big of a payoff. Like, the whole film leading up to the very end is just very, very intense. And then, I don't know. I guess I see where you're coming from. Like, the ending just... I feel like it doesn't hit as hard as it should, but at the same time, I do like that they ended on a slightly upbeat note.
Right.
It's like very slightly.
Yeah, I mean, I gave it a 3 out of 5. Smack in the middle. I think it's an okay ending. I just didn't really impress me all that much.
Yeah, I gave it the 4%. I think it's a step above average because I don't think they really could have done anything necessarily better, and I think it's a pretty overall good ending for this film. Let's move on to screenplay and dialogue out of 8%. This screenplay is very, very good. The screenplay is very impressive.
Yes, it is. It won the Oscar. It won Best Screenplay in
Mm-hmm.
a very competitive year. Um, I think that this is a fantastic screenplay with really good dialogue, like really good dialogue.
Yeah.
The banter between Casey Affleck and Lucas Hedges is like just written so well, and it feels super
Mm-hmm.
authentic. Also, just all of the conversations in the flashbacks, they feel very realistic. It feels like you're intruding, watching real people just having their everyday life conversations, but also in the drama, like the scene with him and Michelle Williams, or between him and like the doctors when he goes to the hospital for the first time. It just all feels awkward and real, like it would be in a tragedy.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that this screenplay is it's sort of masterful in that it's extremely tragic, but it's not over the top.
Yeah,
He doesn't show up to the hospital with some like big
yeah.
outburst. He isn't like freaking out. He's like honestly just
Hmm.
confused and overwhelmed and he doesn't say much.
It's very
And
subtle, and I love that because that's real
yeah.
life. It's real life, and I mean, I'll get more into it in
Exactly.
acting and cinematography, but how they approached this film, it doesn't feel like a movie really. They're trying to approach it with realism,
Mhm.
and they're not trying to be like, hey, it's a movie, or Casey Affleck being like, look at me, I'm a paid actor. Everything he does and everything that this film does just feels very low key, and I think that was the best approach for this film.
Yeah, and the structure of the screenplay is great too,
Hmm.
because this film is built on like the present, which is him dealing with Patrick being, I guess, an orphan or he doesn't have a dad. He needs a
Yeah.
guardian. Uh, Intercutting with the memories of why it's so hard for Lee to return to
Yes.
Manchester
Yes.
and why he can't stay there, why he doesn't want to be his guardian because as he says, uh, oh, I forget the exact line. I think he says, "I can't beat
Yeah,
it,"
I can't beat it.
or "I can't."
I mean, fair
Yeah,
enough.
which,
He
hmm
accidentally killed his children. Like it's awful.
and it's he'll be
Um,
haunted by that forever if he stays
yeah,
there.
and his ex-wife is there with a newborn baby. It's just he can't live there, and I get that. Um,
Yeah. hmm
I gave screenplay and dialogue an 8 out of 8. I think it's deserving. I gave it the eight
Yeah.
out of eight.
I gave it the 8 out of 8 too. Uh, I think yeah, two of my 8 out of 8s have been Casey Affleck. Every movie Casey Affleck has been in so far has had a masterful
Goodwill
screenplay.
Hunting and Manchester by the
Uh,
Sea.
yeah, I think that this is just like it's a very smart screenplay.
Yeah.
It's so tragic but so subtle. It's really well
I
done.
also
It's
like
very
how even though it is a depressing movie, they still interlace a little bit of comedy into the film. And the
yeah.
comedy
Oh yeah.
comes out of like realistic stuff. It's not like pulling a random joke that takes you out of the film. It's like, for example, after the fire and they're trying to load his wife into the ambulance, and um the stretcher keeps screwing up and they can't get it properly into the ambulance. Like it's just little stuff like
Mhm.
that where it's awkward funny because you're watching something so tragic and awful happening to this character, and yet the paramedics can't get the stretcher into the ambulance. And it's just little
Yeah.
things like that that are kind of brilliant because there's stuff that would happen in
And also
real life.
just the banter between Lee and Patrick
Yeah.
sometimes is just hilarious too. Like just being completely outrageous with the demands,
Hmm.
or like bickering about tiny little stuff like winter coats and fingerless gloves.
Yeah, exactly.
Uh, yeah, it's a brilliant screenplay.
Yeah. Um okay.
Yeah,
Soundtrack out of
soundtrack
7.
score. This is a
Um
beautiful score.
it is. And it's
I mean,
very they do reuse
the
a
same.
bit, but it feels
hmm
very it just fits really well for this film. I think the music fits in perfectly.
Yeah.
It's not a crazy score by any means, and it's not like very prominent, but when it's used, it's there. Like The funeral or the fire scene where there's no audio and it's just kind of like slow motion, and they have just blasting music.
Yeah.
That's when the music comes in and is very useful in this film. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't think the soundtrack is crazy by any means, but it does what it needs to do, and it's beautiful. It really is.
Yeah. I think I especially like the choir theme song, I guess. I don't know. Like the vocal like opera type song that they use
Right.
just over
Yeah.
shots of like the boat or just wide nature shots, just having that overlaid. It almost makes you forget that they're just trying to find a way to transition between scenes and showing you random nature shots, because
Yeah.
it's just like a beautiful shot with some beautiful score, and you can't even be mad at it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a beautiful score, but overall, I just only a few songs, and they're not crazy impressive to me.
Yeah.
I gave soundtrack a 5% out of 7. Uh, Overall, very solid, but I don't know. It wasn't quite there for me.
Yeah. I mean, I actually liked some of the song choices used in this film, and I kind of liked the band pieces that Patrick is
Yeah.
in. I don't know. I know
Mhm.
that I wouldn't listen to the soundtrack, but I felt that it worked for the film, so I just gave it the 6 out of 7 because that's kind of what I've been doing.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah. Okay, production design, costumes and set. Out of 6. I mean, there isn't any crazy production design in this film by any means.
Yeah, but I mean, it's solid.
Yeah.
Uh, I think that Casey Affleck's the costumes are like very subtle, but
Yeah.
they kind of work very well. Like,
Yeah.
it's very cold, obviously, in the winter,
Hmm.
in the eastern coast.
Yeah.
So all the winter coats and stuff. I don't know. It's very subtle, but it's decent costumes.
Yeah, the
And I
costumes
think
feel
the set
good.
design is pretty good too.
Yeah, I noticed like Casey Affleck's apartment has really good set decoration. Also,
Hmm.
there's only one scene, but at the beginning where he's having the meeting with his boss at his apartment, and his boss's office is just filled with papers and stuff. I was like, so
Hmm.
random and kind of like not realistic, but very experimental, and I kind of liked it. It was like very cool set decoration.
Yeah.
It was random, but I liked it. And I think that's what's making this above average for me. It's just, even though nothing crazy happens, they did put a lot of effort in the set decoration. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, even though there isn't that much crazy set decoration, they are also splitting that between like 5 different houses that they're at throughout the film, because there's the flashback scenes at their old house that burned down.
Yeah.
There's Patrick's house, I guess. You have Lee's apartment. Their other friend's house. Like, there's a lot of different houses.
His mom's house. His
Uh,
mom's house actually has some pretty good set decoration with all the
Yeah.
Jesus stuff.
And they all have different personalities
Yeah.
too. Like, you can see who isn't depressed and who is depressed.
Hmm.
So I give it a 5% out of 6.
Oh.
It's not the best, but I don't know. I kind of liked it. It was very subtle, but overall pretty good.
Okay, nice. I didn't give it the 5. I gave it a 4 out of 6. I thought, I don't know, it just wasn't there for me. Looking at the other films, I gave 5 out of
Yeah.
6s too. Okay, location selection out of 6. I mean, there's some really beautiful locations in this film. They're subtle once again, but like
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
docks on the sea, this like very snowy Boston, outskirts of his apartment, all of the houses that they chose. The location
Yeah.
selection is pretty spot on in this film, and I think all of the locations work really well for the cinematography and look of this movie.
Yeah, it's very bleak, very like white and blue, just the pretty much winter colors, I guess. And I don't know. There's something about the Atlantic Ocean that looks super cinematic.
Yeah, definitely.
All the boat shots kind of reminded me of The Master, and I just love the way that looks. And this film just uses so many random nature shots to intercut the scenes.
Yes.
And I loved them all. I thought they looked really cool.
Yeah, they're very nice.
And also just you'll have scenes where like Lee forgets where he parked his car, and then they just get to walk around the streets and get some really nice background
I also
shots.
like where the graveyard is, where he's buried. I think that's a very cool location. It's kind of overlooking the sea, and it's like on this hill, and it kind of is like Manchester by the Sea, and it's like this graveyard overlooking the sea. Very cool. Very cool. I mean, all the locations were solid to me. I thought some were actually really beautiful, but I don't know, just didn't get there for me. But I think it's a solid 5 out of 6.
It's not the 6, but it's a 5 out of 6.
Yeah,
it's not quite breathtaking, but they definitely put a good amount of time into it, and it looks very good. Yeah. Let's take a quick break, and then we'll come back and hop into cinematography.
Yes. Okay.
All right. Back at it. Hopping into cinematography out of 10%.
Out of 10. Yeah, I mean, the cinematography, once again, very subtle in this film, but I like the choices that they used for this film, like the shots that they chose to do. And something that really stood out to me with this film that's very different in the cinematography that we usually see in very dramatic, sad movies is that within the sad scenes or the depressing scenes, they pull back. They shoot most of them in wide shots, which is something you don't see very often, and I thought that was brilliant. For example, like when he tells Patrick that his father passed away, it's shot in a very wide shot on the hockey rink, or the scene.
And you don't even get to hear what he says.
You don't even get to hear, and that's the same when he gets to his house with the fire and the police are telling him what happened. It's in a wide shot. You don't hear what's happening. And I really thought that was cool how they shoot kind of the normal, regular, real-life scenes in medium close-ups, and then they shoot the really heart-wrenching, sad stuff in wide shots. It's something very unusual and creative, and I think it really adds to how audiences view the movie, because it's like we're kind of watching from a distance, kind of like how it would be in real life if you're watching something like this happen. And I don't know, I just thought that was creative and cool.
Yeah, I think compositionally this film lacks a bit in terms of like creative framing. But I think, like you said, the shot choices are really unique and honestly pretty cool. You can tell that a lot of the stuff that is shot for conversations is shot from like a distance on like a I don't know, like a long range lens. Because when characters are moving, like you kind of get that parallax effect, I guess, where the background's moving really fast. I don't know. I thought some of the shots were really cool, but I guess it's not necessarily the most beautiful film to look at. It is very, like you said, it's got that like realism style to it.
Yeah.
And I really like the look of this film. I think that some of the landscapes are just beautiful. But, you know, some of the stuff inside, it's like, there's nothing bad about it, but there's nothing like that spectacular about it either.
Yeah. I mean,
there are moments where it shines. It shines.
Like I like the long shots that they use. They use a lot of tracking shots where they just record and like Lucas Hedges and Casey Affleck just talk to one another, and it really showcases the acting in this film, which is important for this movie because the acting is so good. You can just kind of record and let the actors do their thing. But yeah, I mean, it's not crazy, but I think it's creative enough, and they use enough movement in their cameras and shots that, I don't know, I gave it the 8 out of 10.
Yeah, same here. It's subtle once again, but it's a very beautiful film. It definitely doesn't lack in cinematography at all.
Yeah.
Let's move on to editing at 8%. I think that this film has some exceptional editing choices.
Yes, especially how they incorporate the flashbacks throughout the film, I think is very smart, and the places they chose to actually cut into the flashbacks are very smart.
Yeah.
Because they don't really announce that you're going into a flashback. You kind of have to catch on. But by their choices of where to actually put them, you catch on quite quickly. Like when he's in the hospital going down the elevator, and then they have a flashback of him and when his brother was first diagnosed with the disease. I think it's just choices like that.
At first, when I first watched it, I think I was a little confused because they're both in hospitals. But then that almost makes sense because that's why he would remember it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And also, that's the other thing about the editing is that all the flashbacks are placed when Lee would actually remember the stuff that's happening, which is also screenplay, I guess. But like you have the where he remembers the fire with his kids is when the lawyer is telling him that he's the legal guardian and the house has been left to him. Like he's kind of realizing he might have to stay there. And then he's trying to get his way out of it and thinking about why he can't, and then that brings up that flashback. Just stuff like that. I think the transitions between scenes are really great, even though it's like it's weird because for any other film I would call it lazy to just switch between scenes by putting a few nature shots. But it almost like gives you a little bit of time to breathe and like
it does.
Just like mentally prepare yourself for the next.
And it's better than just
even though
doing
this is a tragedy. Oh yeah, for sure. It's like a very sad film, and it's a slow film, and they match that with like a slow editing pace.
Yeah,
which is nice. This film doesn't need to be picked up by fast-paced editing at all.
Yeah, I mean, the editing isn't crazy. It's like everything else in this film. It's very subtle, but I mean, especially the fire scene, I just feel like there's something within the editing that's just a bit more impressive than a lot of the other films we've done. So I thought it was warranted of just boosting it a little bit and giving it that 7 out of 8.
Same here. 7% out of 8. Yeah, just slightly above all the other films we've done. Just in the little things.
Yeah.
Now, let's move on to acting out of 10%. This film has 2 standout performances to me, and that's Lucas Hedges and Casey Affleck.
Yes.
Just incredible duo. I mean, it's amazing watching them together.
Yes.
Really, I think a lot of people in this cast are really impressive. C.J. Wilson.
Yeah, he gives a great performance as George.
He's like sad, but at the same time he's trying to comfort his friend, even though he's also feeling the pain from losing Joe. He's like at the same time trying to help Lee because he knows he's more vulnerable, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean,
I also really like Kyle Chandler in the flashbacks as his brother.
Yeah.
I think he's really
almost
funny.
like a role model figure.
Yeah.
You can tell Lee looks up to him.
Every performance in this film is really good. And 3 of them got nominated for Oscars, but honestly, even the supporting characters in this film give fantastic performances. Even just like the doctors at the hospital.
Michelle Williams is so good.
Yeah, I mean, she's not in much of the film, but when she is there, she's giving it her all. And I mean, Casey Affleck, this is just a brilliant performance. Every scene he's in he's captivating. And he, once again, like I was saying before, he's very subtle in his performance. He's not doing anything crazy. He's not trying to show off. It's all in his eyes. It's all in his face. And he's very low key, but he's also just like, there's so much pain and trauma within him. And I don't know. It's just a brilliant performance. And it's one that is very original from other great performances out there.
I think that it's partially the dialogue too, but everybody that's in this film just it's they're such genuine performances. Like you said, the doctors are obviously trying to feel for this guy, but it's kind of awkward because he's not really crying or anything. You know, he's pretty. It seems like he's managing it very well, but they're like awkwardly trying to give condolences. I don't know, man. All the performances just feel so genuine.
So genuine.
I think it has a lot to do with the directing too.
I mean, also Lucas Hedges was only 17 when he did this movie. I mean,
yeah,
there you go for child actors.
The panic attack scene,
yeah,
the scene where he's having his breakdown is just, it's amazing. And Casey Affleck is like doesn't know what to do either.
Yeah, that scene is fantastically. I mean, yeah, Lucas Hedges, this was his breakout performance. He got so many roles after this, but to think he was only 17 and doing this and like keeping up with Casey Affleck and like being on par with his performance, it's pretty incredible. Yeah, I mean, this easy 10 out of 10 for me. Like, not even a question. Easy 10 out of 10 for acting.
Same. Yeah. I mean, I think I gave Good Will Hunting a 10 out of 10 too. And it seems like a lot of the films where you have a really great screenplay are the films where you have good acting, obviously. They're deeply intertwined. And some of the films where they're technically really strong, they just don't have the acting and the screenplay. So I think, easy 10% for me. This is where the film is carried for sure.
Definitely.
It's not in the technical aspects, it's in the screenplay and the acting.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's a hard film to watch, but I think it's worthy to watch this film just to see the performances, especially Casey Affleck.
For sure.
Okay, entertainment value out of 10. I mean,
this is tricky because it's not necessarily not entertaining. I'd just say it's hard to watch.
It's very hard to watch.
I don't think that necessarily means it's not entertaining.
Yeah, that's true.
Because you are captivated for the whole 2 hours and 17 minutes. I never found myself really bored or uninterested. It's just tough to try to bring yourself to really watch this film.
Yeah, it doesn't have much rewatchability aspects to it. And yeah, but that's true. It is very captivating, and I have to give it props for that, especially the type of film it is. Like, I sat there, I didn't look at my phone once. I was like watching the film, I was into it. Even though this was my second time watching it, it still like gets you exactly what it's trying to do, emotional response and everything. But yeah, I mean, it's a very slow film. It's a very long film, and it's just hard to watch. It's super depressing.
It's just hard to watch, and I think the non-rewatchability it's hurting it a bit. This is definitely one of the films I would watch least again on our list that we've done so far. I think I would rather watch this than Where the Wild Things Are, though, or About Time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I gave it a 7% for entertainment value.
Yes.
It's just it's
same.
a painful watch. It's like hard to I don't know. There's like a difference between enjoyability and entertainment. But ultimately, I don't know. This film, it is what it is.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't think they're trying to make an entertaining film.
No, that's not the point of this film. And I think for what it is, it keeps the audience engaged. And I think, but it's not quite there with the other films that are high up for entertainment value. But I'm not, it's 7 out of 10. 7 out of 10. Okay, let's move on to overall technical achievement.
Yeah, I think that looking at it, I gave the editing a 7, but the cinematography an 8. And compared to the other films that have 13s, I just don't know if there's enough that stands out to me in this film.
Yeah.
To kind of get on that same level. Like, it's very subtle technically.
It's very subtle technically.
But at the same time, that just it really doesn't make for any standout technical moments to really raise the score here.
That's the thing about our reviewing system, is that like films that more focus on screenplay tend to suffer a little bit because like they don't have any crazy technical achievement. I mean, I think this film is still very solid. It doesn't have any like hiccups or any like poor editing choices or whatnot, but it's not quite on the same level as like even Big Fish that we did last week that I gave a 13. I don't think I could say that on a technical achievement level they're at the same level.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I give it 12 out of 15. I still think it's very solid. I just don't think there's anything that impressive.
Yeah, for sure. 12% from me too. Yeah. With that being said, let's take a quick break and then we'll give you our final percentages and spin the wheel for next week.
Spin the wheel. See what we get. Hopefully it's not too sad. Okay, we are back. We've tallied up our scores. We have it all ready.
Yeah.
Manchester by the Sea. Let's see where it ranks from our other films.
Overall, taking everything into consideration, I gave this film an 83%. I think that's about right. This is a hard film to watch. I don't know if I could call it my favorite if I don't even really feel the need to ever see it again. But you know, it's a film that everybody should watch once. There's nothing bad about it. It's just, you know, it has its place in my film watching, you know, in my catalog, but it's not necessarily my favorite place to go. So yeah, 83%.
Yeah. Yep. I'm the same with you. 83%. We were different with beginning and ending, but ultimately came out the same with the 83. Yeah, I agree. I think it, with all of my other grades, I think it falls right. It makes sense. I gave it the same as like Atonement, roughly the same as I'm Thinking of Ending Things, and I think that's kind of where it lands with me. On the scale of just like where it would land on my favorite movies. It's a good movie, but it ultimately is just, it's a difficult one to watch.
Yeah.
And yeah.
83. So our average
obviously
is
that means
83.
Average 83%.
And that means that
Makes
it's
sense.
just above of I'm Thinking of Ending Things. Damn, that movie got like screwed over by our rating systems. Cuz I really love I'm Thinking of Ending Things. I think it's
I mean, yeah, but ultimately I'm Thinking of Ending Things I think isn't really,
it's like the third best Kaufman movie that he directed, I mean.
Yeah, it's like, it's just not of the same caliber as some of these films that we've done. Even though it's like really creative and innovative, I don't know.
It's too pretentious.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, bit too pretentious.
So,
so that means Manchester by the Sea is in 17th place, right underneath The Farewell by 0.5%, right above I'm Thinking of Ending Things by 0.5%.
yeah.
Didn't have to battle anyone out.
Yeah, so
but now we have to figure out our 25th
25.
film.
This is a milestone. 25 weeks. We started this podcast in 2020.
Damn.
In December.
Yeah.
Wow. It's been a while. And yeah, this is our 25th film. Not our 25th episode, but a quarter of 100 films.
No,
should we do something special?
Yes.
Nah, let's save the special like for maybe 50 or something. Maybe we'll do like a marathon.
Yeah. Ooh. Oh yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah, we could like review a trilogy or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well I got the wheel here. Let's pull up QuickTime Player. This is a bit of a shorter episode this week because we didn't have any audience questions.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's see where our 25th film is.
Yeah, here we go.
New screen recording. Record. Let's turn up the volume. Okay, and we are spinning in 3, 2, 1. Here we go. Okay, what are we landing on?
Oh.
Oh. Okay, we have landed on Shame.
Shame. Oh, okay. Damn. Lucas loves this movie.
This is one of my all-time favorite films. With that being said, it's also It's another one of those very difficult to watch films. We got 2 in a row.
It's wildly mature, I guess you could say.
Yes,
from what I've heard.
It's very realistic, and it's I think it's on the same caliber of Manchester by the Sea with like I don't know, enjoyability. Wow, we're getting 2 in a row. I wasn't expecting that. Yeah. Okay, well, Shame is one of my all-time favorite films. It's like my 7th favorite film or something. So I'm still really excited to review this.
Yeah. I'll see what I think.
But yeah,
I don't really know what to expect. I'm gonna go in completely blind. I think good performances are on the radar. I really don't know what else much about this film at all. We'll see.
If there's any young listeners here, maybe skip skip this one. It's not for young eyes. It's not for young eyes.
Yeah.
Even though I was pretty young when I watched it, it's not for young eyes.
I have the
but with that being said,
I have the plot summary here.
Oh yeah, plot summary. That's what we need. We need plot summary.
Okay. Okay. Successful and handsome New Yorker Brandon, who's played by Michael Fassbender, seems to live an ordinary life, but he hides a terrible secret behind the mask of his normalcy. Brandon is a sex addict. His constant need for gratification numbs him to just about everything else, but when Sissy, played by Carey Mulligan, Brandon's needy sister, unexpectedly blows into town, crashes at his apartment, and invades his privacy, Brandon is finally forced to confront his addiction head on.
Damn, I think that's the longest plot summary
really
we've ever
wordy.
had. That was like an intense plot summary.
Yeah, directed by Steve McQueen.
But yes.
Legend.
Steve McQueen, great director.
Great director. Yeah, that was Manchester by the Sea.
Manchester by the Sea.
And we'll see you guys next week with Shame.
See you next week. Thanks for listening. Thank you for listening to Slightly Qualified Film Students.
Make sure to tune in next week for a new film discussion and review.
Our theme song is Slightly Sexy by Thompson Springs.
Make sure to subscribe and leave us a like.
Send us feedback and comments as well as your thoughts on the film. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter at S_Q_F_S.
If you would like to send us a question or a comment for next week's episode, you can email us at sqfilmstudents@gmail.com.
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you all next week.
Bye.